Allow me to start this video with an anecdote, dear viewer. So during the 7th console generation, I was primarily playing on the Xbox 360. I was a big fan of Gears of War, I was a big fan of Halo, and that was the main reason I bought an Xbox One when the generations changed. I wasn't all that impressed with the Xbox One at first, which is why I didn't actually buy one until like 2 years after it came out, and I bought it off a friend of mine, so I didn't even pay full price for one, but that's besides the point. But the first Xbox One game that I was actually excited for, the first game to come out on the Xbox One that I was actually like, oh, I'm glad that I have this new console because now I get to play this new game, was Gears of War Ultimate Edition, the remake of the original Gears of War. I was super excited for this game because the first Gears of War was the game that got me into actual, like, real gaming. Because prior to that, I was really just, I was playing Nintendo games, I was playing casual games, I was playing sports games. The original Gears of War was, for all intents and purposes, the game that made me a real gamer. It made me care. So I was stoked for the Ultimate Edition remake. I got it day one. This was back before I learned not to pre-order games, but I got it day one. I popped it in my Xbox One in my college dorm, and I was almost immediately let down by a simple fact. Despite being a remaster of a 9-year-old game, which, side note, little weird that Microsoft decided to remake it on the 9-year anniversary instead of the 10-year anniversary, but the quote, Ultimate Edition of this game was running at 30 frames per second. The multiplayer was running at 60, but the campaign was only running at 30. And that was incredibly disappointing. As the years went on, I started realizing that more and more games on the Xbox One were not playing any smoother than the games on the 360. Gears of War 4 also ran its campaign at 30 FPS. Batman Arkham Knight was also running at 30 FPS. And it didn't take long for me to just get fed up with the whole thing and switch from Xbox One to PC. That, my friends, was in 2017. It is currently 2023, 6 years have gone by, and absolutely nothing has fucking changed. On April 12th, it was confirmed that Redfall, the next big Xbox console exclusive game and the latest first-person shooter from Arcane Studios, who have a very good track record and I thought would be better than this. It was confirmed the game would be running at just 30 frames per second on both Xbox consoles. The Series S version will be capped at 1440p 30 frames per second, while the Series X version, which is the version running on the allegedly strongest console of all time, apparently, will be capped at 4K 30, which, in case you forgot, 4K 30 was the benchmark for the last Xbox console. Remember the Xbox One X? How it was super amazing that it could get up to 4K 30, and then they came out with a new console and it's still capping out at 4K 30 for first party releases. I also love this little thing here. Oh, a 60 frames per second patch will come in the future. Fucking no, it will not. When has that ever been true, really? Like, when has a game ever come out with 30 FPS performance and then the 60 FPS patch came out in any reasonable amount of time? I'm not saying a 60 FPS patch is never going to come out for Redfall, but if you think this is at all a priority, you are kidding yourself. So not only are you paying full price for performance that was the state of the art back in 2017, 2018, which is fucking embarrassing, but also what I think is extra funny is if you go to the Redfall gameplay showcase video, remember the big showcase that was earlier this year where Microsoft basically sucked their own dick about a bunch of games that nobody cares about except for Hi-Fi Rush? Yeah, if you go to that video on YouTube, you can still watch the gameplay at 60 frames per second, which is more than a little bit dishonest. Microsoft, Arcane, Bethesda, whoever did this. You guys literally did your gameplay showcase at 60 FPS and then waited to the last possible second to be like, oh, by the way, guys, that was a fucking lie. I suppose they realized that at this point, everyone who's going to pre-order the game has already pre-ordered the game, so they might as well get honest now. But looking at this game, there is no reason this should be capped at 30 FPS. And I don't want to be too mean to the game. This game has gotten a lot of shit for its gameplay, and honestly, I don't know if I just haven't been paying enough attention to care that much, but I don't think it's that offensive. It looked perfectly fine. Actually, now that I say it out loud, that might actually be the problem. The fact that the big, Arcane first-person shooter, big Xbox console exclusive, the gameplay looked just fine. and inoffensive. So I guess I take it back. That actually is kind of a problem now that I say it out loud. But there's really no reason a game that looks like this shouldn't have been able to run at 60 FPS, especially if games like fucking Doom Eternal can get up to 60, which ironically is also a Bethesda game. I just don't understand why games nowadays are so fucking picky and choosy with when they actually want to get decent performance. And let's make one thing clear, 60 FPS is not decent performance. That should be baseline performance. Like absolute baseline performance. It is 2023 and the new consoles came out 3 years ago. There is no reason we should already be capping new releases at 30 frames per second. Zero reason for that. You know what other game runs at 60 frames per second? Super Smash Bros. Melee for the GameCube. And before you say something like, oh, the GameCube was a simpler system. Oh, they were able to get it to 60 frames per second because technology was simpler back then and so was game design. Oh, good, so you agree that we should have gotten better than this by now. It's been a long time since I saw such a fucking blatant ass scam in the gaming industry. Like really, 30 frames per second in 2023. I feel like I can't say that enough times. 30 frames per second. In 2023, maybe I'm just extra sensitive to this because 30 frames per second is the reason why I quit console gaming, again, 6 years ago. But the fact that the alleged most powerful console of all time, if the fact that it's still maxing out its own first-party releases at 30 frames per second is fucking embarrassing. The Switch gets away with 30 frames per second, partially because it came out in 2017, but also partially because it's an intentionally underpowered ass console that is meant to also function as a handheld. The Series S gets away with being 30 FPS because it's a budget console. It is the cheapest 9th generation console, and honestly, I don't even think people would have been that upset if Redfall was capped at 30 FPS on the Series S. But the fact that the Series X, Microsoft's most powerful piece of gaming hardware, is capping out this game at the exact same specs as the Xbox One X, the last piece of gaming hardware, like, what the fuck have you guys been doing all this time? And if you think Redfall is going to be an anomaly, if you think Redfall is going to be like an odd man out going forward, you might as well just sell your Xbox now and switch to PC and get it over with. I can practically guarantee you that Starfield is going to be running at 30 FPS. And to keep in mind, we're only 3 years into this console generation, so get ready for Elder Scrolls 6 at like 25 FPS. Like we're back on the fucking Xbox One, as in the original. And if you think this is going to be limited to the Xbox, you've got another thing coming. We already saw how garbage Forspoken ran on the PS5. It's only a matter of time until 30 frames per second becomes the standard again for console games, unless you go buy the PS5 Pro or the Xbox Series XX for an upgraded gaming experience. Fuck off with this garbage performance, fuck off with these never-changing performance standards, and fuck off with these false promises of next-gen gaming on next-gen gaming consoles. If this doesn't prove to you that it's never gonna happen, I don't know what will. Just sell the console and get a PC, and if you don't have a next-gen console, never buy one. I'm not even gonna say toodles this time, I'm just going to say goodbye. Toodles.